I played a bunch of great games this year. I also played a bunch of games that were just okay. So in the tradition I started a few years ago, here's a list of the good and meh games of 2021. Meh number 10, Cyber Shadow. This game looks incredible, and it plays really well. But there are so many BS level design things. The OST wasn't even edited together properly. You have a stage warp system where you can't warp to half the stages after a certain point. It's like a dirty man cave. It's still a cool room, but it's going to be hard for your friends to visit until you clean it up. Good number 10, Hunt Down. This was my first ever review key, so I'm a little biased, but Hunt Down is also a beautiful game with an awesome 80s cyberpunk style with great sound and one-liners to boot. It's challenging without being too annoying. It has plenty of replay value for us arcade rats who like scoring points and shooting digital hoodlums in the face. I have a run on my channel where I only use the starting gun, so check that out and give Hunt Down a shot. It's on everything, including the Switch, worth checking out. Meh number 9, Steel Assault. Pretty much the same thing I said about Cyber Shadow, only shorter because this game's only about 45 minutes long. Then you probably won't play it again. It's like a Fast and Furious movie. It also has enough glitches and design choices that keep it from being something better. Good number 9, Neo2 on PC. Now this is cheating a little bit because Neo2 is an older game, but Neo2 is my jam, especially with creamy peanut butter on cinnamon-flavored artesian toast. I've played over 700 hours. This game is Diablo meets Dark Souls with all of the challenge, combos, fun, builds, and everything that makes up a banger action RPG. I still can't get enough of this masochistic sandbox, and I may play it for the rest of my life. Meh number 8. The Ninja Gaiden Master Collection PC port. Ninja Gaiden is still one of the greatest action games ever made. The reason it's on the meh list is because this port was extremely lazy. They made us wait while they advertised the second coming of Ryu Hayabusa, only to release a port that exemplifies the laziness of the modern game developer. The port barely had graphics settings and didn't even have a full screen setting. The games were still as awesome as we remembered, but the handling of this port was just really sad. Good number 8, Saga Frontier Remastered. This is how you do a remaster. They gave us a more accessible game with great quality of life improvements while not ruining the original by patching all of the fun exploits. Streaming the game and getting some amazing feedback showed me that this game had a big impact on a lot of players. They didn't feel like they had to patch all of the old glitches and exploits because some of those glitches and exploits make the game worth playing. It's so great to see that the developers respected what this game was. I can't recommend it enough. Meh number 7, Naruto Chronicles. This is not a bad game. It's here on the meh list because the good list filled up. The shoot-'em-up action is here, the bullet hell is here, and it's fun, but after a few hours it gets a bit old. There were lots of unlockables for you completionists, but a few unfair missions kept me from being able to do that. If you like shmups, give it a shot, but it's not going to rock your world or anything. Good number 7, Krita Del. Krita Del came out of nowhere, but I'm glad it did. As a fan of roguelikes and run-and-gun action games, this hits the spot. The shooting and weapon upgrade system is really fun. As you play, you actually unlock more perks and feel like you are getting stronger. It's hard without being unfair. There are a few issues like having to use the bumper buttons to fire, which really hurts my fingers. The stages are a bit longer than I'd like, but overall, I want more of these kinds of games. Meh number 6, East 9, Monstrum Knox. The East games are always pretty good, but this game seems like it's starting to repeat itself. I like the story, some of the characters, and the combat, but it just feels wonky and samey. The PS4 version runs like a steaming crap pile, and it's hard to get the control config working the way you want, especially when mapping your guard and dodge buttons. I want to continue playing this, but I just don't have time right now, and I'd rather spend that time on good number 6, Halo Infinite Campaign. This is a pretty weird year. I just put a Halo game above a JRPG. It doesn't feel like the void of Halo 4 or the overkill that was Halo 5. It's just where it needs to be. They took the extra time to make this game better, and it runs good and plays good, at least on the Xbox. On PC, it may be different, and the multiplayer is a mess with the Battle Pass, but the campaign is Halo. It feels finished, it's not perfect, but it's better than expected, and that's good enough for me. Meh number 5, Legend of Mana Remaster. This is a beautiful game. It has amazing art. It's memorable at times and has some fun character moments, but it's on this list. The combat is super slow and not fun. I guess we gave it a pass in the late 90s, but it sucks now. The magic is weird and barely does any damage. Some of the objectives and levels and mechanics are not easily discovered. There's lots of backtracking. I could go on. We got lost in the magic of its visuals and music back then, but as a game now, it's just meh. Good number 5, Outriders. Remember Outriders? Yeah, it came out this year. As a shooter, Outriders is not all that special, and the in-game multiplayer is kind of clunky. But if you were into character building, classes, and weapon perks that actually synergize with your build, this game is worth it. It's a looter shooter that is fun and doesn't hold back in the OP damage department. They don't nerf everything as soon as it comes out like another game I might mention, and the support for the game, along with good communication from the developer, continues even now, and it's worth a look if you want to loot and shoot. Meh, number 4, Diablo 2 Remastered. This is another game that probably would have been better staying in the past. Diablo 2 is good for what it was, but now it's a bit stale. The game is a bit unbalanced and clunky. It didn't help that the release was plagued with all kinds of online play issues when it launched. It also didn't help that Activision Blizzard is, let's just say, in a period of transition? If you like this game, chances are you'll still like it, but I'm just going to leave this one alone. Good number 4, Metroid Dread. Master Chief isn't the only person in an alloy metal suit that came back this year. Our favorite space bounty hunter Samus Aran came back as well. Metroid Dread is a labyrinthine, claustrophobic adventure that had to be so complicated from a game design perspective that I was mostly impressed by the organization of it. Even with the Switch's bad analog stick, it controls good. It's a reminder of why Metroid is still part of the Metroidvania genre. I think there are too many upgrades in the game, it's easy to lose your way, it's not scary at all, and running away from the killer robots in the later stages is a bit unfair. It also struggles to hit that 60 FPS frame rate, but these flaws aren't enough to ruin this great game. It made a ton of money, so expect to see more of this. Meh, number 3, The Binding of Isaac Repentance. Before Repentance came out, The Binding of Isaac was a great game. I played it all the time. I loved doing runs of it. Then Repentance launched and they nerfed all the shops and several features that I really enjoyed. Then they nerfed my favorite builds and they made the new content so difficult to where it wasn't fun. Then they made the rest of the content almost impossible to find without a guide or some kind of clairvoyance. After several bad runs with nothing new unlocking, the dopamine stopped and so did I. Good number 3, Fist, Forged in Shadow Torch. This was a pleasant surprise, a Metroidvania game set in a dark Zootopia-esque city in turmoil. It has a large map and lots of good item-finding exploration and a good combat system with a high skill ceiling. The game was about 8 hours longer than I expected, and it was for the best. This is a game I could dig into for hours. A Sunday afternoon game, the kind of game that I miss these days. It was made by a small Chinese team of people, and it shows that passion and creativity can come from anywhere. Meh, number 2, Axiom Verge 2. I really enjoyed Axiom Verge 1. Its creator, Thomas Happ, spent 4 years working on a Metroidvania of his very own. It was fun, large, and a bit unnerving and atmospheric. The music was killer, and the control and shooting were solid. Axiom Verge 2 is an Epic Game Store exclusive, and it could be good, but I have no idea. The first few hours were boring, sparse, lackluster, confusing, with a weird story and no clear goals. Everything the game did to immerse me failed. It was hard to even make contact with enemies due to the close-range combat mechanics. This is what meh means to me. I don't want to play this game that wasted my time. They can't all be winners. Good number 2, Tales of Arise. This game should have not made this list. The combat is clunky, the bosses are unfair, the third act story is derivative, but the world map was beautiful, and the story was actually engaging at points. The combat grew on me, plus some mods got released that fixed everything, so after giving it a shot and ignoring its flaws a little, I actually had fun, and that's why it's on this list. I tried soloing bosses to a moderate success and got into the fishing and other mini-games. Eventually, I got every achievement and completed a half-decent game, but there is still a balance between the casual and hardcore player base that needs to be addressed if this series is to find its voice. If you've watched some of my game reviews, this will not be a surprise to you. Meh, number 1, Phantasy Star Online 2 New Genesis. For some reason, I am still playing this expansive dumpster fire, but I like the warmth and I'm too far to stop now. This game can be summed up in one Mad Lib. I really like blank, but blank is pissing me off. I like the combat, but there's no animation canceling. I like the atmosphere, but the story is garbage. I like the open world, but there's nothing to do. This game is kind of fun, but it's cheap and lazy. The developer is really stingy. They don't release any new content, but want me to keep paying real money for microtransactions and loot boxes. The new expansion that came out this year was a little bit better, but only time will tell if this game and its developer can get their heads out of their smelly butts. Dum da dum 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 dum. Good number 1. Shin Megami Tensei 5. Someone read a book on world religions, then a book on mythology, then a book on Asian folklore, and threw it all into a blender with a Christian Bible and some episodes of an after-school special about teen depression, and this game's story emerged. As a person of religious upbringing, this game should make me angry, but this isn't my first demon management rodeo, so I was already expecting a weird scatterbrain work of ignorant blasphemy. As far as the game goes, the graphics are old. It runs on an outdated game console. It barely hits 30 FPS. From a technical standpoint, the only amazing thing is that they got it to run at all. Despite all of the problems, this is my game of the year. The story is off-putting, but it has a real weight to it. The graphics are outdated, but it's full of creative designs. The new open world is filled with things to find and do. The combat is fun and extremely versatile. The customization of your character is streamlined, and you can build a party with all kinds of different stats. You can solo super bosses if you know what you're doing. The new Game Plus mode is great, and it allows you to explore different endings with different unlockables. People said this game was really hard, but actually I think it's easier than past games. It didn't take 4 hours of grinding to beat a boss, just some clever party rearrangement. They made dungeons that weren't just a maze of frustrating puzzles that took forever. For example, there is an earlier boss in the game that is really hard, but when she gets to half health, the battle ends. An older SMT game would have had you take down the whole health bar, and there probably would have been a giant dungeon beforehand. Overall, this game made me want to explore, fight, and create. It kept me coming back, and even now, I think about the next cool thing I want to try with my party or my character build. That's all I really want in my game of the year. A game that makes me excited with a desire to play it often. If you made it this far into the video, thank you for your support. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and have a happy new year. This is Dan T from Twisted Banana Productions, signing off. See you in 2022. Please be the year that Freedom Planet 2 comes out. Please.